Well, all right, let's move into the next video. This one's from Montoya. And yeah, the thumb and title caught me, as always, with most of these videos that I've been watching lately. Star Citizen community at the bottom of cycle. And it's like, you are here, you know? So let's see.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Hey, you new guys who've recently backed Star Citizen in the last couple of months, over the past year, come a little closer. I've got a question I'd like to ask you. And you OG backers, I have some questions for you towards the end here also. But for you new guys who've backed more recently, I'm curious to know how you feel about what you're seeing in the community here. There's overall negativity. I think it's pretty apparent that most of the community is very upset about the recent changes to Wave 1 access to the PTU. And I'm looking at this post here on Reddit, and it's a guy saying he's unsubscribing, and he's been around for 10 years. And I love some of the responses they've had in here. We'll go over them. But I'm more curious to know, for you new guys who've just started back in the game, how you see this.
Montoya playing down the actual backer sentiment. He said it's overall negative. What is he playing down? What?
What does this tell you about the community itself, or has this changed your opinion about anything in the game? Reason I ask is,
I think this is an interesting point of view on this as well. I didn't expect this to be a PTU video, but yeah, like if you were somebody new coming into Star Citizen and you went to Reddit right now, you'd be like, whoa, probably, right?
A lot of games I've been involved with over the years don't come anywhere close to this level of salt that Star Citizen backers have. And the range in the fluctuation, the bipolarism from extreme hate and despair to this is a magical moment for us all, right? I don't know if you guys have seen this. I pull this up every single time we're in a downswing.
Oh my God, this chart is much more difficult than the circle.
And I think it's about time to pull that again. Now, this chart here was not made for Star Citizen. It appears on many different gaming subreddits and gaming forums. And it's pretty self-explanatory. You are here. We're complaining on Reddit. And the complaints will be that CIG is not listening. The complaints will be that CIG is not being professional in the way they're dealing with things. And CIG has made horrible, wrong decisions. Does it all sound familiar to you? And again, this was not made for Star Citizen. This applies to every single other game out there.
I mean, the problem with this chart is appeasing dev blog happened 9 months before we got 318. 318 didn't work. There was no praise. 6 months of boredom. Complain on Reddit. So, you know, just like this would be for a normal game, this doesn't apply to Star Citizen because Star Citizen is not a normal game. It's not a game. Unfortunately, in a lot of definitions of the word, right? It is the same flowchart, but there was no, just remove praise for 318 because there wasn't a lot of praise. This year is different. This year is different because 318 release was worse than 3.0. Okay? 318 release was worse than 3.0. Legitimately. I was able to get into a server in 3.0. I was not able to get into a server for a month in 3.18. That didn't happen in 3.0. This was the single worst Star Citizen release in its history. You cannot deny it. It is just a fact for many of the backers, right? Some people were able to get in. Many were not. So for me in particular, this was the worst release I ever experienced, right? So I don't think Star Citizen like he pointed out, like this is the saltiest I've ever seen a community. Like just generalizing the Star Citizen community as salty. And I mean, it never used to be. I think they're the most polarized, which is also what he said. Is you're either like completely blind to to certain things that are happening and are going to praise them no matter what they do. You're going to be silently waiting, watching from a distance, which a majority of people are doing, or you're going to be like overly negative and hate what happened because you spent more money than you expected because of, maybe FOMO marketing, maybe the way the game works, and you felt like you were going to need to buy a ship to experience it better, and then the development moved too slow for you. There's a number of reasons why you would be upset. Obviously, I've fallen somewhere in between. Like, if I really like something, I praise it. If I don't, I don't. And I feel like I'm in the minority there. It's a very polarized community. Yeah, like for me personally, you either hate me or you love me, right? But the idea of it being like the saltiest community you've ever seen, I don't know, man. League, Overwatch, any Blizzard game, I think we're doing all right.
One point or another. Then we get the upcoming appeasing dev block. Now, we're not going to get an appeasing dev block. What we'll get is an Inside Star Citizen with a new teaser. No doubt there's going to be teasing some new ships coming soon. I think at CitizenCon...
I mean, our appeasing dev blog could be like CitizenCon coming up, but it has been, over the last few years, the letter from the chairman, right? Thank you, Damien.
If they want to replicate the success of the 2018 release of the Kraken, which they made bank on their one, I think they're going to be releasing some big cap ship at CitizenCon to suck in some money there from everyone who didn't attend. We'll see. I have a lot to say.
That's interesting. I look at it so differently now. Don't you think the way the community sentiment has been, and I posed this to Montoya, actually, but everyone in chat as well, is don't you think the community sentiment would be incredibly negative if they released another cap ship that has a year in the backlog after the Banu Merchantman, after the Pioneer, after the Polaris, and all this drama around these things? The Galaxy. I mean, the Galaxy really, might have done well financially, but the community sentiment was quite low around that. But do they care about community sentiment, or do they care about making money? I think that their actions are very different than their words, and I think that Montoya might be onto something where all they have to do is draw a picture of a ship and have it be very unique and very big and very expensive, and they will recoup a lot of the losses from the very unfortunate big update that they had at the beginning of the year, which put them on the back foot, like huge from a funding standpoint. I think from the actual game, if you take the time to deal with the bugs and the problems with the game and see how the game feels now versus the way it did, obviously that was a huge update and made a big difference. But it also really set them on the back foot for the whole year.
About what I'm expecting at CitizenCon, but let's move on. So there's a big appeasing dev block, or an Inside Star Citizen in our case, and 2 months go by and there's a big update. There's a Pyro update. We can now travel to Pyro. Everyone is going to be praising CIG. Look at a beautiful thing they've done. We can move between systems, and now that we can move between two systems, the world is going to open up wide open, because now we can have all the systems coming in. And after 2 months of playing in...
Dude, he's 100% right about this too. Because that's what it's going to be. He is like 1,000% spot on. It's going to be, look at how pretty it is. Look at what gameplay this opens up without that gameplay actually being there. And they won't make that gameplay. So therefore, in 2 months, you'll get bored, complain on Reddit.
Pyro, there will be boredom. Now I'm going to predict the future. 2 or 3 months after Pyro launches, there'll be boredom. And back to complaining on Reddit. This cycle repeats.
Yes, because they're not going to deliver tangible gameplay with Pyro. That's my expectation. They will release more orbs of emptiness, and maybe the jump gate is a bit of tangible gameplay. We'll see. It really depends on how they handle the jump gates, and can they be camped? How can they be defended? How does that work? But yeah, essentially screenshot gameplay will be pyro, and that's sort of my expectations there. I would love for them to exceed those expectations, but I think most people probably are expecting, and I personally would want the initial release to be quite simple, to try to mitigate as much of the 318 possibilities that we had this year.
So if you've never seen this before, this holds true, and we've been through the cycle in Star Citizen I don't know how many times. It happens multiple times within a year. We just happen to be at the bottom side of it now, and this is where you, a new backer, has managed to come in. Good timing, right? You older backers, you OG guys from 2013, 2014, how many times have we seen this, right? It's not new. It happens all the time.
Exactly,
But this time does feel a little different.
It is
and
different.
The reason it feels different is we are closing in on that 10-year period for a lot of people. Not that there's some invisible barrier 10 years, but just being 2 digits, 8 years, yeah, fine. 9 years, fine. 10 years. 10 years sounds like a big number, and it is. So in this particular case is a Reddit post by James IV4, and his post is nothing new. We've seen it many times in the past, but some of the responses were awesome. And I want to dig down to a couple of those with you guys and read over them. So he says, it's been a good journey. I've been subbed for 10 years. All right, he's been paying for 10 years. I built my first PC in 2013 to play this game and VR.
We've all been there.
I feel that because
my 780 Ti, guys, was going to be... That was it. My 780 Ti 4770K, that was my Star Citizen build. Let's go.
I also upgraded my PC, and I got the AMD 2070. The 2070 was a mid-range card, which was, I think, $250. Was it? Check my math on that. And that thing was awesome. That thing allowed me to play the Hangar module. Who remembers the early Hangar modules with that yellow fog, right? I was able to play it with that card for quite some time. And yeah, also VR was fresh, so we were all getting prepped for Star Citizen and VR. Boy, were we early. Now, 10 years later, I would have thought the game would happen. We all did.
Boy, were we stupid, you mean?
Look, nobody back in 2013 and 14 expecting to be where we are right now. But then again, the game we backed in 2013 is nowhere even close to what we have now. Procedural.
And you could take that point and call that a positive or a negative. He seems to be taking that as a positive. I consider that a massive L.
Planet tech, an entire planet made up of a city. These things weren't even in our wildest imagination back in 2013. So to give CIG some praise, yeah, they've done a lot of things which I would never have imagined in 2013. But at the same time, there is a game which a lot of us did back and are still waiting for going on. All I see are posts about ships and more ships. Now, the reason you see all those posts about ships is because that's basically all we have to go on at the moment. I say it myself, I don't play for a while, but when the new Spirit comes out...
It's so odd to me. Ships are all we have to go on by the moment. Why? That is a direct decision by CIG, right? The reason we only have ships at the moment is because that's all they've fed you. It's not because there's no choice. There was a choice made here, and CIG made that bed, and now they're living in it, right? Now they have to sleep in that bed.
I'm in there because I want to try the new shiny ship I paid for. I'm going to enjoy flying around it for a while, and then I'll get bored also after that. So ships are the thing which keeps a lot of people engaged and excited, myself included, and naturally a lot of people talk about that. Endless reworks. How many times has a UI been refactored or replaced? I don't know. It's been a while. The UI has been a bit of a work in progress over the years. There's a
it's almost never been good.
Down there somewhere which mentions it. We'll look at it in a second. We still only have one system. Exploration jumps are nowhere in sight. Absolutely yes. But I am hopeful that we see this in SeasonCon. We're going to see the jump point and at least give us a solid date on when.
We've seen the jump point for 4 years in a row. What do you mean, Montoya? What are you talking about?
This is going to be happening. So I'm hopeful. I'm not going to hold my breath because we know better than to expect something, right? But I'm hopeful we do get some progress on when we will actually be able to jump to a new system and be able to expand the game from there. But the argument of having one system, I mean, yeah, there's one system, but the amount of detail and the amount of things to do in that one system is more than what you'll see. I don't want to jump ahead to Starfield and try to make any comparisons, but there's a hell of a lot of stuff happening in that one system. The amount of explorable area, the distance, and it's still growing. So, yeah.
I have a hard time with that one. I don't know if vast emptiness and a few of the exact same bunkers is enough for me personally. They have, again, endless potential, Star Citizen. But you really have to ask yourself, have they released... I guess I can't talk. Have they realized that potential yet with any of the planets? I think maybe when you leave a city... I think one of the best moments in the game right now is a side opening hangar door at Microtech or New Babbage, the city there. That's fantastic. But the idea of making comparisons to a game that has progression, NPCs that you can interact with, that actually probably are going to talk back to you, that join your ship and all these things. This is Starfield in theory. We'll still have to see what Starfield is like on release, but I don't think comparisons are fair, and I don't think Star Citizen has tons of things. They have tons of entities, but interactions, progression, meaningful gameplay on those planets is severely lacking. I think the most recent ISC about the bunkers was one of the most disappointing things I've ever seen, because all they talked about was the exterior, and that's all they were talking about. They're not changing the interiors. That's terrible.
Not really an excuse. We were promised a lot more systems, but again, SeasonCon, we'll see what happens there. I'll still follow Star Citizen casually. If the game ever releases or the big updates, that's perfectly fine. I'll probably see on YouTube, but I didn't sign up for a 10-year journey on this game. Absolutely correct. I don't think any of us signed up for a 10-year journey on this game. I think CIG will be breaking records when it comes to game development time. None of us expected 10 years. I expected maybe 3 or 4 years. It became 6 years, became 8 years, and here we are.
Yeah.
But at the same time, those of us who do follow the progress understand what's been happening. Not that you have to make excuses for it. There's plenty that CIG...
You don't have to accept what's happened as something that you think was good, but it happened, and here we are. And I think sometimes with this channel in particular and others, I do get that he's so negative or whatever, right? But then sometimes I get the opposite when I'm like not going so hard on them for maybe something that you may have. And the reason is like, I'll take what I can get now, because it has been so rough. So like, for example, when they allowed us to loot players, man, I was praising that. Third person inventory, the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life, but being able to loot players was amazing. The mining changes, amazing, right? Salvage missions, awesome, right? And then, so I say certain things that I love about changes that they're making, but that doesn't ignore the fact that the overall expansion and incredible scope creep of the game is something that, if you're still here following it and still care, you kind of have to accept the fact that that's happened and move forward. But the reason we're all in this boat is because it happened. right?
could have done differently. In fact, if
You
they
don't
can go
forget
back in
it, but you
time,
accept
I'm
it.
sure they'd be able to finish this game within 5 years if they had the know-how they have now to go back and do it correctly. Then they'd know. So yeah, definitely frustration. And the point I want to make on this,
What did he say? Because I think that that's a really interesting point.
know-how they have now.
Let's see.
There's plenty that CIG could have done differently.
Yeah.
In fact, if they can go back in time, I'm sure they'd be able to finish this game within 5 years if they had the know-how they have now to go back.
I don't. Wow, that is super thought-provoking. Do you agree or disagree? I think that they would keep the exact same funding model, right? I don't think that they would revert planets. I think that they would do everything the same. And there would be minor tweaks to the way they did things. Right? Yeah, like they wouldn't do the original Star Marine with that company that, it failed with, or they wouldn't send ship art out to people who didn't do a good job with it. But I think the scope would be exactly the same. I think the creep would be all the same. And I think we would still be, I do not think it would finish in 5 years. Because in order to finish in 5 years, they would have to not have an open playable experience. Right? They would have to work on server meshing from the beginning and not bring in so many assets to make it so difficult. That is one of the most thought-provoking statements anything of any Star Citizen creator, official video, post has ever made me think. If they could go back in time, would it be different? I can't think of a scenario where it would. Right? I cannot think of a scenario where it would be. Yeah, would they even choose this engine?
Back and do it correctly, then they'd know. So yeah, definitely frustration. And the point I want to make on this also, and this is what I've been telling people on my Discord, there are people.
I tell you what they wouldn't do. They wouldn't have done that Squadron 42 update, the briefing room or whatever the hell it was called. That's one thing they wouldn't do.
That backed with me in 2013, 2014, who hung around till about 2016 and then disappeared. They uninstalled the game and they go, I'll be back when there's something happening. That is perfectly fine. There is nothing wrong with just uninstalling, taking a break, and come back when there is something more.
That is the overwhelming majority of the Star Citizen community.
In fact, I can think of no better time. Now, I'm not advocating for you to uninstall Star Citizen, but if this is bothering you, if this long development cycle is keeping you up at night, if you cannot sleep, if you are crying every day because you spent $45 a couple of years back and the game isn't made and it's really bothering you, uninstall. Just come back at a later date. And if you're upset about
I don't know if that's entirely fair. I don't think people who are spending $45 are really feeling that way. I think the people who are posting on Reddit are like this guy who has given them, a 10-year sub is $1,200. We're talking about, this is just his subs, let alone what ships he purchased, right? So I don't know if I think that that's entirely fair.
Part of it, look, I'm not advocating gray market, but there are ways to get your money back if you really want to have a clean slate and move out. My advice has always been to people who are really, really upset is clean slate. Just wipe it clean, uninstall, sell your account to someone if they want it, and move along with your life, because there's nothing worse for your mental health than sitting along and suffering endlessly. I'm not saying this guy is, but I've seen.
Yeah, and I know he said he's not advocating for it, but just so everyone's aware, selling your account is against the terms of service. So just be careful with that.
People just continuously be sad and upset and angry day after day and week after week, it's not healthy for you. Move along, and there's no better time because Starfield's just coming out now, and that's going to be awesome. So, no better time, in my opinion, if you want to take a break from Star Citizen and come back maybe after CitizenCon with something new to announce and do it. But let's take a look at some of the answers, some of the responses in here, which I thought were awesome. Here's one saying, I signed up for one 10-year journey. That's the next one has me worried. Absolutely.
That's funny.
I will say with pretty much certainty now that CIG will set the record for longest game development cycle. They've got it down. That's going to happen, right? Most expensive and longest game in development. They can do it. That's not a record we thought they'd take, but
it's not a record we want.
And here we come up with some of the other comments about how life has changed over the last 10 years. And I feel this, man. I had no kids when this game was announced. My kids are going to grade 4 and grade 5 now. All these posts about saying how life has changed over the 10 years.
A literal space dad.
Time waits for no man or woman. Here's one by Patton Is Movement saying, I just looked at the 320 patch. I don't think I'll be logging in when it goes live. There's nothing in it. That's perfectly fine. There's absolutely no reason to feel that you need to log into anything. I'll be logging in because a ship I like is going to be in it. But if there's nothing drawing you in, don't feel any obligation to. It's perfectly fine. You don't have to play this game. Internal Trade 9008 says, same here. No hate or childish emotions, just apathy. And I think I mentioned that right in the beginning there.
Yeah.
Part of it, too, is I've changed and grown. And I'm not even sure I'd like the idea of what the PU is at the end of the day supposed to be.
I don't think we know yet.
Interesting comment. This is actually a good topic. A lot of people get into this game and have an idea in their head of what they think the game should be.
I'm really curious what he's going to say.
If the game deviates from that, they lose their minds. I think we see this a lot in the PvP community, especially the very serious PvPers. They want some good hardcore PvP, and when they don't get it, they get very vocal about it. But there's also the large silent...
And the other side of that coin is also happening, just to be fair.
...majority in this game who are the PvEers. PvE is by far the biggest part of this game, and the PvE community is quiet. They sit.
Dude, he's doing his own headcanon right now, right? Because I guess the 90-10 thing is where he's taking that that it's the biggest part thing from. So I guess that's fair. He has some facts to back it up. But the major issue here, and that I call CIG out regularly for, is that there... Oh, no, I just backed... Okay, hopefully I can get it back where we were. Oh, let me click on it.
Back? They don't make...
There we go. The idea of the... I lost my train of thought, but I guess... now I'm back. I'm back on the rails. The idea of CIG leaving everything vague, and I think they do it on purpose, is because all this headcanon makes you think that your ship is more valuable than it actually is. Oh, I'm going to do this with this ship. It's going to be so incredible. I think the best example for me is the ship I had the absolute most insane dreams and ideas in my head was the Starfarer. The Starfarer was the ship that I would literally go to sleep thinking about because I didn't have it, and it wasn't for sale. But all I could think about how I was going to earn it in game or buy it or whatever at some point, and I was going to go to a gas cloud, and I was going to scoop up all this fuel, and I was going to turn it into fuel to sell to other players or to NPCs, and I was going to be this, industry titan or something like that, right? 10 years later, the Starfarer, look at this thing, dude. It's a joke. Can't refuel anybody. Fuel doesn't matter. Nothing, And it has worked so well to their advantage that I believe they do it on purpose. And the reason that player goes, I'm not even sure I'd like the idea of what the PU is at the end of the day. He's only, or she is only taking the the features that are currently there or the features that they're focusing on now, right? I think a lot of people are pretty upset with the state of, well, piracy is so prevalent now, even though it's really not, and things like that, right? Like, look at CIG supporting all this piracy. That's bad. I don't like what the PU is becoming, right? Things like that. When in reality, we have no idea what progression systems look like, what endgame might look like, what is the biggest thing we can own or purchase or build, what are big orgs going to do, what game design systems are they planning on putting in place so we can watch them build those systems. They don't talk about that ever. Think about that, guys. They never talk about that stuff ever, right? We have literally mission designers here. But to what main goal are they building these systems off of? I know this was a joke, right? But like just seeing you in chat, Elliot, who will be on SEL today, it's like everyone's like, ah, man, the missions are kind of boring or repetitive. Like, people have their critiques of the missions, but how do you build a special, really great mission without progression systems or any word of what progression systems may be like, right? They might have internal talks about them, but they're certainly not public to us, right? So it's kind of interesting. Games design? I don't know, man. I saw Star Citizen live last week, and I beg to differ, but
too much noise. And if you're into I'm assuming this is what the situation is here. I'm pretty sure this guy is into the PvE part, and he goes, it's not turning out the way I'm making an assumption, but I think that's what he's getting at. End of the day,
I think the again, to my point, the biggest problem here is that nobody knows what the PU is even supposed to be still on year 10. It's not that it's taken 10 years for them to develop it. It's that we don't even know what they're working towards. That's my biggest critique of Star Citizen, is it's much easier to go, okay, these are the systems. These are exactly how they're going to work. These are the expectations players have going in. I know what I'm buying. I know what I'm purchasing. If I get this ship, I'll interact with these systems in this way. And we can't do that, right?
The truth of the matter is, the game is going to be what Chris Roberts is envisioning it to be.
One day, Elliot.
It's not going to be what I want. It might not be what you want. It's going to be what he decides the game's going to be. And it just might not be right for a lot of people. That's just a fact. The finished game, when we get the polished PU, might not be the game you thought it might be. That is always a risk out there. In fact, here we...
Well, and again, I think that is... We are gradually weeding out the people who are not going to like Star Citizen, right? We are weeding them out as the game is developed. So as people find out that the systems aren't what they like, they go away. And that's going to happen slowly over time. And I don't think that's necessarily the best way to do things. I think it's very not consumer friendly what CIG is doing, because players are buying, passing their point in which they can get a refund, and then realizing that they didn't purchase the game that they wanted, and it's really not fair.
Have Warm Vanilla Sugar, love the username. Same, I've grown apathetic and I have zero interest in the full loot open PvP design they went with. Perfect example here. All right.
But did they go with that, right?
Full loot meaning you get shot and killed, you die, someone can come take all your stuff, whatever you're wearing, your weapons, everything in your
ship
backpack, everything.
Stuff.
And the PvP design they have right now is, doesn't matter where you are, PvP is always the risk. I know a lot of people like this, but there's a big silent majority who's like, I don't know about this. I just want to go.
I would argue, Montoya, they're not very silent. And I'm probably going to agree with some of your statements here.
Go mining with my friends. I just want to go exploring without the risk of getting blown up. Is there a way I can do that? So I don't think that the early idea of a PvP slider is going to make it into this game. What I think they're going to do is essentially take an EVE Online model where there's some dangerous areas of space and some safe areas of space. You are not safe anywhere, but you will be more safe in some areas. Right now, because we have one system, you're not safe anywhere. You can be minding your business, mining a rock somewhere. Someone will come along and bomb you just because they like the look.
He has a more PvP friendly approach than I do on this subject. I think you should be completely and unapologetically safe in some areas. Right? Impossible to shoot, to kill, to do anything to anybody in certain areas.
Of the explosions, that's it. So PvE and PvP, I feel, will find a balance eventually. I do feel CIG will eventually cater a lot more to the PvE crowd, but at the moment they need the PvP crowd to be happy. PvPers are active. PvPers are in the game right now, and it's them that CIG want to make sure that they are happy. So that's why you may be seeing a lot more PvP right now than you.
Oh, I don't know if I agree with that part. If they wanted PvPers to be happy, they would not be developing the flight model in Squadron 42 so heavily.
Will in a couple of years, when there's more systems to fly around and be involved in, there'll be systems which have no security, and there'll be systems with lots of security. Those
to be fair, if you're in a city in real life, you could still get shot even if deemed safe. However, if someone goes down for some reason in a city in SC, I can't even medpen them. Yeah, but this isn't real life. This is a video game. Like, can we please? I think this is CIG's biggest problem with calling it a sim for so many years. It was never going to be a sim. It was always going to be a video game, and that was a really bad approach on their part.
Those ones will be more PvE friendly, so you can't really judge the game as it stands right now. But otherwise, this is a great topic here.
Kind of the master.
Great responses. I really like what I'm seeing here. Overall, look, the community is at the stage of complain on Reddit and being upset. But those who've been around from the very beginning, or those who've been around for a couple of years, we've seen this many, many times. And
but never like this, Montoya. We've never seen them have this big of a dip in funding. We've never seen a lot of things that are happening this year we've never seen before. I think there are some red flags happening.
Again, as I said, the difference this time being it is 10 years. And for a lot of people,
both community sentiment, funding, the state of the game. There's a lot of negatives happening this year in comparison to every other year.
People, they kind of draw the line somewhere, and I think we'll see a lot of people saying, I'm drawing the line 10 years. But on the flip side of it, just watch. In a couple of months from now, when people have played a couple of 100 hours of Starfield, there'll be a fair amount migrating to Star Citizen because now they got the space bug. It's bitten them. I'm pretty sure we'll see a big uptick. So that's my thoughts. Let me know what you think. If you enjoy my content, give me a thumbs up, subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one.
Maybe. We'll see. I don't know about all that, but we'll see. But that was cool. I mean, especially that one part, like how thought-provoking was that? If CIG can go back and do it all over again. I mean, I know they wouldn't hire Elliot, so that would be one choice. But the idea of could they do it in like 5 years? No chance, right? Games take 8 years now. I mean, we see that with games with much less scope than Star Citizen. So it almost feels like we're still on the right track, which is insane. But yeah, we'll have to see.